Welcome everyone to HDEV 310. My name is Professor Lauren Heidbrink, and I will be your professor for qualitative methods in human development. So I want to just introduce myself, give you a little bit of background so you have a sense of who I am and how I'll approach the class. When I was actually a recent graduate of undergraduate, my first job was at a torture treatment center in my hometown of Chicago. And it was in that experience that I encountered people from all over the globe who had had experiences of torture and trauma, who had fled their countries and were seeking asylum in the US. Some came as refugees, but most were seeking asylum. And in that work, I served as an interpreter in therapy sessions and in court sessions. I accompanied folks to medical appointments, to enroll their kids in school, to learn the public transportation system, to enroll in ESL classes, and a broad kind of range of experiences as they navigated life in a new context. And it was a very interdisciplinary space, right? We worked with a team of physicians and lawyers and psychologists, mental health professionals, anthropologists, and people that really valued working cross-culturally and learning from different perspectives. And so it was through that work that I got to learn about how different disciplines approach state violence, approach experiences of trauma and torture, and approach working cross-culturally. And so in that experience, I wanted to go back to graduate school. I went back to graduate school at night at DePaul University and got 2 master's degrees, one in international studies because I wanted to understand the global context that led to these experiences people were telling me about and the kind of political regimes that they were advocating to change and in the end fleeing. And then also a degree in nonprofit management. I wanted to learn the nuts and bolts of how you run an organization, the human resources, the policy and advocacy, the grant writing, the fundraising, the donor management. So I spent about 6 years there, started as a case manager and ended up as the program administrator. So really valued that experience and then went abroad. I worked with Doctors Without Borders in Angola. At the time, Angola was in a conflict, a protracted conflict, about 30 plus years. And as part of MSF, Doctors Without Borders, I tried to respond to the emergency health situation. There was a famine at the time, and people were trying to navigate healthcare amid this conflict. And at the time that I was there, the war ended, and so then it became a transition to setting up a long-term public health system. So again, really valuable experiences working cross-culturally, figuring out kind of how medical and health systems work, what were the factors that were influencing people and their experiences following conflict. And also spent a little bit of time in Mozambique as well, doing some research on what was called the Orphans and Vulnerable Children policy of the UN and seeing out what were the lived experiences of young people whose parents had been taken by HIV/AIDS. And so the work that I've done more recently, I went back and got a doctorate in anthropology, and in that work worked with the children and grandchildren of the folks from the torture treatment center. Their children were arriving. Sometimes reunifying, sometimes migrating unaccompanied because the legal process took so long, and sometimes fleeing. And so I did research in immigration detention facilities and immigration courts. I interviewed folks, staff, judges, advocates, and then did observations, participant observation, which we'll learn about in the class. And then more recently have done work with young people who've been deported from the US and Mexico to Guatemala over a long period of time. So seeing what their immediate experiences were of detention and return, but then also their experiences as they return to their communities, try to integrate in society, decide what their future plans were. And these are primarily indigenous Maya Mam and Maya Quiche use in rural Guatemala. So I'll try to bring those different experiences into the classes when we talk about different methods, and we'll read a little bit of my work towards the end of the class. And so I'm really excited for what we have planned ahead in this semester. I think it should be a fun and engaging way of learning qualitative research methods, and I'm always here to support you. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.